Questions and doubts are a common and necessary part of every journey. They help find the best answers to life's hard questions and to challenge long-held beliefs that might not actually be true or proven or healthy. They can keep us from harm or help us to escape bad situations. Sometimes our questions and doubts can set us free, but they aren't easy, and these trying times can make us feel even more disconnected, desperate, and alone. But you are not alone. Recovering from Religion is an organization comprised of people just like you, people who have asked questions, who understand doubt, who can help you navigate through the confusion, and who are genuinely there to help. 24 hours a day, any day, you can reach out for encouragement and support on the telephone or via online chat. And RfR even provides online communities to connect with others just like you, even if you choose to do so anonymously. Recovering from Religion is a safe place where you can reach out, explore your questions, converse with a friend, and be completely yourself without fear. No judgment, no rejection, just an opportunity to connect with someone who understands. There's no reason to go it alone. Recovering from Religion is ready whenever you are. Reach out today at recoveringfromreligion.org.
Hello everyone. So for those of you who don't know us, my name is Amaya Perez. I am the online programming director of RfR, and I'm also your co-host today, unfortunately for you. And I'm here with Eric Wells, who is the support group director and also amazingly our co-host today again. So I'm super happy to have Eric today. It's always amazing to have such an amazing person here. And I think the first thing we're going to do is pull up the poll, which is anonymous, and you can all vote. So please do so, because it let us read the room, and it's just a nice way of checking what sort of audience we have. So yeah, make sure you vote that there. And Eric, do you want to do the shout outs that we need to do before
you bet.
The official intro?
The poll also kind of helps the folks who are here to kind of get them in the mindset of what we're going to be talking about as well. I also kind of want to give a kind of a cool shout out to the folks at the Atheist Community of Austin. I always get those A's mixed up. The Atheist Community of Austin, they have they are streaming this to their Discord server, and we couldn't be more grateful for that. And so we're going to go ahead and drop the link to the ACA Discord server for you if you want to find and connect with a group of some like-minded folks. Obviously, they're atheists and non-believers from the name, but feel free to head on over to the Discord server and join them. And we've got another invitation too. If you are part of a group that would like to stream RfRx every Monday night to another Discord server, perhaps there's another secular group out there somewhere in the world who would like to kind of have this content on Monday evenings, feel free to please drop us a note, send us an email, and let us know. All right, Amaya, tell us, what are we doing here? What is RfRx all about?
Sure. So RfRx is basically a series of online weekly sessions in which we bring in guests to discuss different topics that may be relevant to anyone who is involved in RfR or interested in topics related to non-belief and being ex-religious. So this is not a replacement for the helpline community or the support groups. It's more of a complement to these services. And it's also a good way of providing good advice and coping skills to anyone who may need them right now. If you have any sort of questions, any feedback, anything you want us to know, we have an email address that you can send us any sort of queries to, and that is rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And of course, every single one of our previous RfRx sessions, you can find them in our YouTube channel, that is youtube.com/recoveringfromreligion. I highly recommend you check it out, because we have had some amazing guests. In fact, the guest we have tonight, she has been here before multiple times, and every single time has been amazing. So I highly suggest you go check the YouTube channel. And that said, I'm going to jump to explain what is our mission and what it is that we do in RfR overall. So in RfR, we have a mission statement. and that is that we offer hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with issues of religion and non-belief. So Eric, would you be so kind to explain hope, please?
You bet. Yes. So RfR, the way we go about accomplishing the mission of providing hope for folks who are struggling with some issues of doubt and non-belief is we have a blog and we have a podcast too. And through those podcasts, we share stories that folks can may be able to relate to, some coming out stories, some stories of the things that they've struggled with in their life through their lack of belief or through their doubts. And so when we have stories that we can relate to, and that may provide us a light at the end of the tunnel, that may provide us some hope. Like, if these people can get through it, then maybe I can too. And so we would strongly encourage you to check out those stories, both at the blog and at the our podcast. And we have switched blog platforms too. So if you have the old link at Patheos, then you can go ahead and disregard it and check out the new link at medium.com. All right, what about the healing, Amaya? What do we got going on for that?
Well, for the healing aspect, we have our amazing helpline agents, and they operate in, obviously, our helpline, which is done via online chat or telephone call. And here, our agents will listen to you with an empathetic ear and no judgment or criticism to any issues that you may have which are related to religion. This service is completely confidential, available 24/7 and safe. So it's really a great resource to use if you feel like you could benefit from this. And apart from this, we also have a very, very large number of resources. And this collects everything from books to articles, podcasts, videos, just anything you can imagine. You will find it in our resource page, and that is recoveringfromreligion.org/resources, which I'm sure Todd has linked it in the chat. And if you're watching this on YouTube, every single link we mention will be in the description box down below. Now, Eric, since you're in charge of the support groups, do you want to explain support?
Yes, I do. The support groups. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I always get excited about the support groups because we have got some fantastic support group leaders out there. And if you happen to be a support group leader, why don't you raise some hell in the chat? We'd love to see that. But what is a support group? These are face-to-face. These are usually in-person meetings, and we're doing them all virtually right now for obvious reasons. But this is where if outside of like an emergency where you can use the helpline, like you've really got a thing that you need to talk with someone about, when you kind of get past that, you can come to a support group, a local support group, where the long-term kind of work is done. These are all support group leaders who are peers of yours, peers of mine, and we can just talk and have an empathetic ear and provide some resources for every month, every other week or so. So we have right now about 53 support groups around the world. It's an incredible number, and they're all here waiting for you to join in and work, talk with you and listen to you, and just let you go at your own pace with whatever you need to work on. And you can find all of the support groups we've got at the meetup link. We've got that in the chat. And then we also can provide support through the Secular Therapy Project. Now, Maya had talked about the helpline, and I just covered the support groups. Those are both peer supports. They're not professionally trained people who are out there giving you advice and giving you, working through things with you professionally. But oftentimes we need to step up from more than just peer support. And so we have set up the Secular Therapy Project. And that's where there is a group of mental health counselors who will vet and ensure that other mental health professionals who are wanting to be a part of the Secular Therapy Project database make sure that they are screened to make sure they have appropriate licensing in their state or country, that they maintain a secular practice, so that when you connect with one of these mental health professionals, you won't run the risk of being proselytized to or being sent home with a Bible verse to look up. And also make sure that they're screened, that they're using evidence-based practices. You can find them at seculartherapy.org. All right, what else you want to talk about, Amaya?
So I just want to briefly mention the private helpline community. And this is basically an online platform that we have in RFR in which you can chat and meet with people who have similar backgrounds as you. So we have all sorts of different groups, from LGBTQ+, only for females, for ex-military, for Australian only, for families. We have all sorts of different groups. So if this is something that you feel like you could benefit from, all you have to do to join one of these groups, which, by the way, I'm sure we'll have a group for you, is contact one of our helpline agents, and they will let you know what the steps you need to take in order to join the group. And apart from the chats, they also hold Sunday night Zoom meetings, which you can also join if you fancy some of that more personal kind of one-to-one interactions. And then before we jump to speak about last week's RfRx, I want to speak a bit about volunteering, because volunteering has been such an amazing thing. I think not only for myself, but for every person in RFR. We have an amazing community of volunteers in RFR, and it has really brought us all together. I feel like we are all there to support each other. I feel like we can all count on each other to be able to push forward this message of, it's okay if you have left religion, we are here to help. So if you have a bit of extra time in your hands and you're considering volunteering, all you have to do if you want to volunteer specifically in RFR is go to our volunteering website. And that is www.recoveringfromreligion.org/volunteer. Again, all the links will be in the description box and in the chat. Okay, so now let's talk about last week's RfRx, which was really intense, really, really cool. We had a first-time speaker, which was Ito Autini, and she spoke about how religion relates to disability, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. And I feel like she really gave us insight on how important community is for people who have disabilities, in order to free them from having to be with religious groups, in order to just leave the house and socialize with other people. So it was really eye-opening. And I mean, Ito is such an amazing person. She has an unbelievable background, and her story was absolutely mind-blowing. So yeah, Eric, what did you get out of Ito's session?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. This was a session that I kind of thought going into it would be challenging for me, and it turns out it was. And it was a fantastic and long overdue session to have, and a discussion to have. So Ito was just fantastic. The thing that really stuck with me is I have is to kind of just, when I'm interacting with a person who may have a disability, is to just be normal, just be their friend, and kind of ask some questions like, hey, how would you like to be, how would you like me to talk about the disability that you have? Like, just kind of have some questions and probing questions, as opposed to just treating them how I would like to be treated, treat them how they would like to be treated. It was a continuation of an old discussion we've had for quite a while about the platinum rule and being a little bit more work than the golden rule, but with much better results and much stronger relationships. And I really also enjoyed kind of watching the chat and seeing folks kind of understand how some religious folks relate to disabilities, and how because many people weren't in that world. They weren't treated poorly, or even as a person who has a disability, they have to kind of fake it in order to get some of the services, to get some of the friendship, to get some of the community. And it was really eye-opening for a lot of the people in the chat too. I really liked to watch that happen.
Yeah, definitely. And it was also a really, really good wake-up call for us in order to make RFR more accessible also for people with disabilities. So in terms of what sort of channels we use to share the events, what sort of language we use. So it was absolutely amazing. One of the most challenging sessions we had so far, definitely. So yeah, it was really, really good. Okay, so now, Eric, I think you are going to explain how the meeting format is going to go.
Absolutely. So this meeting happens the same as they're all going to happen. They've all happened. We're going to have a discussion with our guest for about an hour. And during that discussion, you probably will have some questions that you'd want to ask our guests. And that's totally okay. So feel free to type that question into the chat. And then during the second part of the discussion, we'll have a Q&A session. It'll last about 20 to 30 minutes. And that's where we'll ask the guest your questions. And that goes for you over there at the ACA Discord channel. If you've got some questions, type them into the Discord, and we're going to do our best to get them over to our guest today as well. So don't hesitate to do that. After our Q&A, we're going to hear from our Executive Director, Gayle Jordan, all the way in the Pacific Coast area, Pacific Northwest. Looking forward to hearing from her at her new home. And I don't know what she's going to say, but it's always been good, whatever she's going to say. And then we're going to shut the recording off, and we're going to kind of just open up the lines and hang out. So feel free to stick around for the hangout, because that has always been just a great time. Talking about last week again, the hangout time went for an additional 5.5 hours after we wrapped up the RfRx discussion. It was just an incredible length of time where people were still on having great conversations and talking with one another. So that was one hell of a neat time to see, a neat thing to see, like 5.5 hours. Man. So, all right, why don't you introduce our fantastic guest, Amaya?
It will be my pleasure. So obviously you all know Janice. She has been here before so many times, and we keep bringing her back because she's just that amazing. And today we're going to speak about how community is important for mental health, for even physical health. How it's just so crucial, especially in the era of, in the era of COVID, is super important. So we're going to speak about that. And I'm just going to give you a bit of a bio of Janice. So Janice, as a registered professional counselor with a personal history of religious trauma syndrome, is passionate about helping others understand their losses and embrace their new identity in the secular world. Her own deconversion experience compelled her to develop the online Divorce in Religion workshop, a 6-week interactive workshop combining written exercises and group work to bring together those from diverse backgrounds who are walking a similar journey. So Janice, thank you so much for being here as always, and welcome. It's so amazing that
you keep inviting me back. It's wonderful.
Well, you keep doing such a great job, you know.
Thank you, guys.
And the topics you bring are always so relevant. I feel like in this case, community, it couldn't be like better timed. Like it's, regardless if you've never been religious, you're probably feeling a bit lonely right now, or you have had in the past few months. So I feel like this is such a relevant topic. And obviously, especially if you're ex-religious, then that is obviously something that you have had to struggle with.
Now, kind of before we step off on this is actually a part of a whole set of modules you've put, a whole curriculum you've put together.
That's right. Yes, there are 6 modules, and this is one of the modules in the Divorcing Religion workshop. It's called Plenty of Fish, and I did name it after the dating site because I thought that would get people's attention, finding and building new communities.
Well, I think that worked because there is a ton of people here.
And I gotta say, I have not had great luck on Plenty of Fish, so I wish you good luck if that's the pool you choose to swim in.
So this is this is the 5th module of 6, and Divorcing Religion kind of covers that's a whole curriculum type of unit. Is that what you're calling it?
Yes, it's well, I call it an online workshop, and I designed it for each module to mirror or reflect one of the stages of divorce, marital divorce, because when we divorce religion, when we walk away from our faith or lose our faith, it is very much like a divorce. It actually is significant enough to even be compared to death. If we've been very devout, very faithful, and we lose that faith, it can be very traumatizing, really, really hard. So I thought packaging it as divorcing religion, people could relate to that.
Yeah. So I guess the first question for this specific topic of community would be, why are we treating the topic of community, which I know is very obvious, but maybe you can give us some effects of loneliness, both physical and mental health effects of loneliness. Why should we care about this topic?
It's so, the timing of this is so appropriate right now in the midst of our pandemic. And actually people who are living with religious trauma syndrome, so you've been affected by not only losses that you've incurred by being part of a religious community, things that you've had to give up, things that you've had to deny, but then losses that you've suffered as a result of leaving or being kicked out of that community. So that's religious trauma syndrome in a nutshell. If we're already coping with the loss of our religious or faith community, and then now we're also forced more into a time of self-isolation, we're at tremendous risk, a lot greater risk than I would say than the average person for mental health concerns, and not only mental, but physical, because there are physiological impacts from being lonely. And in fact, even before the pandemic, a couple years ago in the United Kingdom, they developed a minister in their cabinet, their government, that I think has the saddest title ever, called the Minister of Loneliness. And that's really a government office that they had to open up there. So it's very significant, particularly in first world nations, in Western nations.
Yeah.
And what I found is that loneliness is not just synonymous with the idea of solitude, but it actually is defined by the level of satisfaction with connectedness, and also by our perceived self-isolation. So it's how we're perceiving the situation as much as it is just the fact that we are on our own. And loneliness increases the health risks. I did read an incredible study suggesting that the impact is smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes a day! That was shocking to me. So
really bad.
Yeah, that's a big
awful.
deal. And it's twice as harmful to physical and mental health as obesity. Loneliness is. That is mind-blowing to me. And I think we've never lived in a time where loneliness has been such an epidemic as it is now. And chronic loneliness also can lead to long-term fight or flight signaling in your body, when that's activated. And that leads to higher inflammation and lower immunity. So if you're chronically lonely, you may also be having trouble with your immune system. So it's really important to be talking about loneliness and acknowledging loneliness and trying to figure out how we can help ourselves and help other people in the midst of a loneliness epidemic.
Yeah, I think I read in an article that loneliness decreases life expectancy by a ridiculous number. I don't remember which one, so I'm not gonna even try, but it was like a completely absurd number. That was like, how is this not something that people talk about more? Because obesity, alcohol, cigarettes, we all know how bad all of these things are. We all know the dangers of it, but I feel like we don't speak so much about loneliness. So
it can be very hard. It can be very hard for people to admit that they are struggling with loneliness and battling loneliness, but particularly now in the age of pandemic that we're in, it is a very real issue that people are dealing with. And of course, it can also drive addictions as people are trying to self-medicate, and they're drinking more, they're eating more, they're involved in behaviors that can actually be harmful if they're doing them too much, and they're doing it to try and soothe that feeling of loneliness that's inside them.
I'm on the tail end of the Gen X generation, and my generation and the ones before it, we were all kind of taught to just suck it up, buttercup, and so we've kind of been taught to just stuff it, and even if we're lonely, we can't really talk about it because you should be able to fix this on your own. But I would imagine that just is like a vicious cycle of kind of feeding upon itself over and over again. And maybe we'll talk about this more in the towards the end. But that's kind of what I'm hearing when you're describing it. It's kind of what's coming up for me.
Right. And when we were part of a religious community, often loneliness wasn't nearly as much of an issue because
Right.
it was a ready-made community, a one-stop shop meeting so many of our needs. So to have that loss of community really does impact us quite negatively in some ways. I came up with some ideas for how we can be battling loneliness, and some of them also would work with the idea of building community, so battling loneliness and building community. If you want me to talk a bit about those, and just jump in and ask me questions.
Definitely, please.
Okay.
Let us know how can we fight this very common issue.
Okay, one of the first things that I think is important and that we absolutely have the power to do is to try and manage our thinking, and particularly to use the skill of reframing, psychologically reframing things. So it's very easy to fall into the mindset of, oh my God, everything's terrible and the pandemic's going to go on forever and everything's awful. But the truth is actually that we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know how long things are going to go on. There could be a vaccine sooner than we're thinking. And how about looking at it as an opportunity to slow down a little bit? How about if we look at ways that the earth is healing itself, the planet is, doing better, with less people driving around, going places. And also it's an opportunity for me to slow down, to do some inspiration, right? To look at myself, things I want to change about myself, things I like about myself. It's not all bad. So take the time to learn about cognitive reframing and put that tool in your toolbox. It's a good one to have.
Yeah, I could see Eric smiling there when you were saying about the catastrophical kind of thinking of everything is just going to go bad. So I'm pretty sure we can both relate to that because, I definitely do it. And I have definitely done it, especially seeing how people don't wear masks and all that amazing, lovely, lack of responsibility. So we do have, and I'm going to do a shameless promo, we do have an RfRx session on hope. And I highly recommend it because I think it's very, very relevant to not only right now in COVID, but also just in your life. If you feel like there is no hope for the future, definitely go check it out. But maybe, Janice, you can give us some extra tips on how we can stay hopeful for the future, because sometimes it can be quite challenging to see the light side of a dark world, let's say.
Right. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of lists and making lists, and that can be that can include a list of things that I'm scared of, and then a list of things as they actually are, and then trying to figure out, well, what is the actual chance that all this stuff could come true that I'm fearing, and sometimes, sometimes there is a good chance that a bad thing or a difficult outcome is going to arise. And in that case, the best you can do is educate yourself about it and try and be prepared. When you worry, you suffer twice. So let's really try and control our thinking.
Can you say that again?
When you worry, you suffer twice. That's your first good one.
My dad has been saying that to me all my life, and I just have such a hard time in actually putting that into practice. Because it is true, you just make yourself suffer twice for absolutely no reason. But how can we not do it? If sometimes it's just the only thing you can think about. It's just so difficult.
Yes, your dad contacted me before the show and asked me to bring that up for you. I know it's one of those things that can be harder to put into practice, but really when we embrace the fact that this life may be the only life, man, does that make this life sweeter. It makes me absolutely want to squeeze everything I can out of every minute and not waste 1 second on worrying about something that may or may not come to pass. So there's a difference between being prepared, like being reasonably prepared for something, and being consumed with worry about something. And if you were worrying, just notice it, laugh about it, don't beat yourself up over it, and move on. So I'm glad, you can thank your dad for that. That was good advice he's been giving you.
He has been trying for many years and consistently failed, but I do appreciate the effort.
At least you remember it. That's good.
The
next thing I had written down is just some common sense health guidelines. So where things are different for us now, the world looks different. What we can do though is try and keep our schedule as similarly as we can to what we had before, or adapt it as needed. We respond well to schedules, and that includes keeping up your exercise and eating well. I mean, I was joking a little earlier about the COVID-15, and lots of people right now, as they're stuck inside more, they're eating more, they're drinking more. So we want to be mindful of that, because your health really is your most precious commodity. So let's take care of it. Let's not pretend that it's not happening. We're all under more stress right now, and you're the one that's in charge of everything that goes into your mouth while you're eating and drinking. I also want you to be mindful of rest. Some of us are tending to stay up later and later right now. We get caught up on Twitter or whatever it is. Let's also take care of what we're mentally ingesting. Are you becoming a news junkie? Are you feeding yourself bad news all the time? It's time to curb that. I want you to consider the source of your news material, or is it just rumors, or is it actual fact? And also give yourself permission to step away. You're allowed to take a break from social media. And in fact, if it's for your mental health, then I really suggest that you do that. And I hope that you will consider doing that. So, technology. Technology is such a great way, using it to connect with other people. It's good to be searching for opportunities to connect with people when we're lonely. And of course, it looks a bit different now than it did before the pandemic. You might be doing more online communities rather than in real life communities. Safety still remains the goal when we're doing either in real life or online communities. I want you to be aware of hateful places on the internet, because anger resonates with anger, and like attracts like. So you need to know the difference between unproductive, self-annihilating anger and productive anger that can lead to change. So try and be aware of that. Yes, it is frustrating that we're all going through this. It is frustrating and angering that you no longer have your religious community or whatever else is bothering you there. But don't get tied up just in groups that focus on that anger. There's so much more there. There's opportunities to volunteer. We can still volunteer online. And some of us are able to volunteer in person. I know that RfR is always looking for volunteers. So yay, plug for RfR. It feels so good to volunteer, and you meet people that you might not have met otherwise. So big fan of volunteering. Anyone?
Yeah.
Anyone?
I used to be the executive director of a local secular community in Springfield, Missouri. And one of my favorite, we did a whole bunch of events, but one of my favorite events were the volunteering ones, because we were all there kind of just doing something good, whether it was cleaning up the highway or packing lunches for some kids, needy kids, or getting some food to some food insecure people or what have you. And, we kind of just were having a great time. We knew we were doing good. We were kind of just hanging out and just didn't have any ulterior motive, but we were all there for the same kind of thing. And that was some of my fondest memories, I think is the appropriate word other than funnest.
It could be both.
Yeah. But yeah, I love the volunteering aspect of it. So that's a good tip. Very, very good tip.
I think it's also really significant for atheist and humanist groups if they can at all be figuring out how they can help out in their communities, because volunteering is not the property of the church and of religion, because when they are volunteering, it is with an ulterior motive. They want to get their hands on people and people's wallets and whatever else. If we're doing it because we're humanists and because we just actually want to help other people, let's get that out into the community. Let's give legs to that opportunity. I'm glad you volunteered. I've done lots of volunteered with hospice, suicide hotline, crisis hotline, Alzheimer's Society, all sorts of, there's always groups that are looking for help.
I can definitely relate to that. I started volunteering in the pandemic, just when we went into lockdown, and it has definitely been the thing that has saved my mental health completely, because it makes such a massive difference. And I really mean this. Like, if I wasn't volunteering in RfR, I know I would be having massive depression and anxiety, because I'm just naturally prone to those two. So I cannot recommend enough that it doesn't have to be in RfR. Obviously, if you want to, amazing, but it doesn't have to be in RfR. Just doing something for someone else releases dopamine. That is it's just a fact. So definitely give it a try, because if you haven't already, because it's just amazing.
Yeah,
It is.
Before even doing work in Springfield, I was in Los Angeles area and helped out at the local Humane Society. That wasn't people. Those were amazing, adorable cats and dogs, and that was very, very fun too. Like, I'm not one for. I'm kind of an introvert and would rather just be home alone reading a book. But when I get to be around animals and cats and dogs, I just feel so awesome. Like, these guys are. I love working with animals, and so if you don't like people, you can still work with, you can still volunteer, and you can't not like animals.
Yeah, it's like that bumper sticker. The more people I meet, the more I like my cat. That is true sometimes. That's not good for a therapist, but yeah, it's true. So yeah, volunteering. We want you guys to get on board with that. It's such a great way to expand your community and generally meet some people who are fairly selfless. I mean, they want to be improving the world that we're all living in. It's a great time to learn something new. I don't care what it is. It can be harmonica. It can be drawing. It can be baking something you've never baked. Learn something new. Ooh, I'm taking some great online conferences about sex and intimacy through Somatica Institute. Wow, they are hot and they are so good. It's time to learn something new. I'm just putting that out there.
Great.
Yeah, no, that is so true, especially if you used to have like a hobby and you can't do it anymore. Like, I used to do pole dancing before quarantine for 3 years, and I haven't been able to do it because all studios are closed, and that is absolutely terrible and catastrophic. So baking has definitely been like an amazing alternative. Just doing something that keeps you entertained is just an amazing thing to do. So definitely try one of those. Thank you, Janice, for suggesting that, because it's definitely a big one.
Well, might I recommend, if you're baking more and eating more, how about just putting a pole right in your kitchen? And that way, you can eat something and then you can get some action going on the pole. Yes, pole dancing. I like it.
Yeah, I've definitely gained weight in quarantine, so I'll have to lose that.
Do things you enjoy. Now is the time to start doing things that you enjoy. Stop putting it off, for Pete's sake. This is it. This is your chance, people. Resurrect some hobbies and things that you've always wanted to try. Here's another truth for you. Forbidden fruit makes the tastiest jam. That's one of my favorite sayings, and it's so true. Things that you have always been curious about, and particularly things that you denied yourself permission to explore because of religion. Guess what? You're not bound by those rules anymore, and you're free to explore. Might I introduce you to something called the incognito window on your computer? If you are exploring some things that may be slightly X-rated, you want to be able to have privacy. If anyone else looks on your computer, thank you for clapping. You know, use your brain, use some wisdom about researching things, but by all means, it's time to explore. And again, that can lead to expanding your community in some pretty fun ways, I might add.
So it sounds like first we're kind of working to deal with some of the loneliness, and then we find people out of these interests that we discover. Is that what you're kind of, the path we're kind of going down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's battling loneliness and also building communities. And I say communities plural. Religion used to be our one-stop shop for getting our needs met. We would have our social needs met, our psychological needs met. There'd be childcare for 2 hours, so you'd get a break from your kids. Sorry about that, break from your kids, if you need a break. If you were going through a hard time financially or socially, you would have those needs met in the church, in the one-stop shop. Now, your life is going to look more like a mosaic or a patchwork quilt. You will have many communities, and it's up to you to build those communities. And it takes effort, and it takes work, and those are things, responsibility. The church robbed us of our agency, robbed us of independence. We were to become more and more dependent on the church for meeting our needs. That's how religion keeps people there. That's one way it keeps people trapped. So now, yay, you have the opportunity, the joyful opportunity, to build your own life, to build a life that is meaningful to you. We need to stop being meaning seekers and start being meaning makers. And I'm talking to each of you. You all get to become a meaning maker. And the meaning of life is to give life meaning. You get to decide what is meaningful to you. That's the life I want you to build. It doesn't have to be a life I approve of or that I enjoy. It has to be a life that you approve of and you enjoy and is meaningful for you.
Do you have any tips for those who maybe struggle to fight the shame that maybe these new habits are creating in them? Because if it's something that the church used to forbid, I'm definitely sure that people are facing these sort of negative feelings when doing these activities.
Yeah, this is also a great time to do some values clarification exercises. And you can Google different sheets and forms for values clarification on the internet. If you grew up in religion as I did, or you spent a long time in a kind of narrow group, you were told what to like and what not to like, what was appropriate and what was inappropriate. You may not actually have ever even thought about what is important to you, what you as an individual like, and what's meaningful and important to you. So doing some values clarification now that you're apart from that religious group can be really helpful and can also help point you in the direction of new communities that you might want to be a part of, because you're going to want to be engaging with people and activities that align with your values. And so as far as the shame question goes, it's important to be aware if we're feeling shame. Am I feeling shame because I'm doing something that's violating my religious group's code of ethics or their value standards? Because I don't give a shit about that anymore. I need to be aware of my own values and what's important to me. So as long as I'm not going against my own values, I don't have to worry about that, about feeling shame at all, and keep coming back to that. Keep asking that question. Is this shame because of something that was imposed on me? Or is this something, an actual value of my own that I need to look at and maybe do some work around?
That is massive. Thank you. I didn't know about the value sheets. That is really, really interesting. I'll definitely check it out.
Values clarification.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let me write it down because I want to know.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. We talked about
Cool.
doing some things that you enjoy. I'd also like to recommend for people the idea of doing book clubs. So I'm a fan of Dr. Marlene Winnell and her book called Leaving the Fold. And there are several clusters of people who are doing reading groups of Marlene's book, Leaving the Fold, and it is changing lives. These are groups of like 4 people on her through her Journey Free website. And you can do that, of course, with Dr. Ray's books. He has some fantastic books that are also life-changing for people. You find out, ask in chat groups, is anybody interested? Would anyone like to explore this book further with me? And it is an opportunity to build a close, tight-knit community of people with a like interest who really get to know one another and can support each other. So I want to encourage you to look at book clubs.
You know what?
there-
It's so funny you say that because I watched Interview with a Vampire and just kind of made fun of it on Facebook because it just was like a silly, goofy movie. And then some friends were like, "Well, you need to read the book." I'm like, okay. And out of that, we actually started an Anne Rice book club. And I mean, I
Cool.
never thought I would join, or let alone even start an Anne Rice book club. But I had a great time. We kind of met, this was before COVID, but we met in like a restaurant. We'd have like a month or so to read the book. And it was a lot of fun. It was, it was just kind of cool. And all these other people read the book too. And just Anne Rice book, if you had like told my 30-year-old self, hey, you're going to be a part of an Anne Rice book club, I'm like, you're kidding. But it was a lot of fun. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I like that idea.
Oh, I also would recommend for any of your viewers who are so inclined. Anne Rice also has written a somewhat naughty trilogy, I think called Snow White or about Snow White. So some of you might enjoy that. And I'll just leave that right there. Book club. Oh yeah, we talked a little bit already about the idea of inspiration. I want you to become aware of your own needs and feelings, especially as they pertain to divorcing religion, to losing your community. It could be helpful to make a list actually of everything that you lost in losing your religious community. And then also to make a list of the needs that you currently have, because that list is going to be your starting base for what you need to be doing for yourself. You're going to take that list and see, how can I get these needs met? And depending on the community you live in, there might be some in real life groups that you can participate in. Certainly you can use Google to research different groups. I'm in a ton of Facebook groups. I've done a lot of meetup groups. And of course, you want to be keeping safety in mind anytime you're doing those things. But making those lists is a good place to start. You now have full permission and full responsibility to meet your own needs. There's really no other way around it.
Is there any other platforms that you recommend for people to find their communities, especially on the internet, obviously?
Let me see. I've got some of my papers here. I have a list of a ton of podcasts, like being part of what's affectionately known as the ex-evangelical community. So community of people who have left evangelical Christianity. There's a lot of groups and podcasts focusing on that. Also YouTube channels. There's a ton of YouTube channels. I don't know if you want me to read any of these out, or if you want to list after the fact.
Yeah, we'll dump a list into the chat, and we'll also put it up on YouTube in the description later.
Excellent.
But if you would maybe kind of talk about one or two and what make them so important to you, why you added them on the list, that'd be good.
Sure. Oh, sure. As far as podcasts, one of my favorites is called The Mind Shift podcast with Dr. Clint Haycock, Heacock. And Clint is originally from Seattle, but he now lives in Wales. And he has his doctorate in theology, I believe, and he certainly is no longer a believer. But he has the most interesting, phenomenal guests on his show. Right now, he's doing kind of a deep dive into Christian nationalism and looking at some of the dangers that that is posing, especially in your country. I'm in Canada, but really around the world. Yeah, Clint has some great and interesting guests. And also he has a vibrant community on Facebook for people who are interested. Twitter, I've also found to be a great place of support for myself. I'm judicious about whom I follow and even whom I allow to follow me. But I have found it to be good for me. You sometimes have to have a thick skin on Twitter and on social media, but my first rule is take nothing seriously. You know, take nothing personally except love. I heard that recently. Mindshift podcast, indoctrination podcast. Oh, of course, the atheist experience.
Classic.
How to Heretic.
Yeah.
There are so many good ones. For YouTube channels, I love Valerie Tirico. I know I've mentioned Valerie before, but she has some videos that break things down into very bite-sized pieces to help. They helped me understand how I became so engrossed in my religious faith, and also how that religion fits into society at large. So I really like Valerie. I want to mention a YouTube channel that your viewers might not be familiar with. It's a German name, Kurzgesagt.
Kurzgesagt.
Yeah,
I love Kurzgesagt.
It means in a nutshell. That's what it means. And one of my favorite videos that I found really helpful was called Optimistic Nihilism.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really serious topic for me, and I was scared to explore it, the idea of nihilism. So when my brother recommended that to me, I was so glad I watched it. So I do recommend Kurzgesagt for a YouTube channel. Sam Harris, of course, as well. Sensibly Speaking with Chris Shelton is a former Scientologist, very interesting and likable fellow. So there actually are a lot of places you can go online to be building your community. And I, of course, have a Facebook group as well called the Divorcing Religion Group. It's a private group. You can find it and answer some questions if you're interested in joining. Just very supportive. And some of the members have been able to get together in person because they're from all over the world, not just from the United States, but also from Canada and Africa and different parts of Europe. So the relationships that you're making online are actually significant. And sometimes they do also work out to be in real life relationships and friendships.
Yeah, you know, that was an interesting shift that happened, I think, in like the 2000s, where before online dating was scoffed at, and making friends on the internet was kind of in that vein too. But now more and more, there's like no difference between real friends who are next door to you or you went to school with, and friends that you meet on Facebook that you may never ever meet in person. Like, I've noticed that shift happen in my own circle of friends as well. I'm working with so many amazing support group directors, and many of whom I may never have the opportunity to meet, but they would be there just as readily for me if I needed something than anyone else would down the street. It is a significant shift in how it's always been.
It is, and it's one of the very best uses of technology, in my opinion, is connecting us to other humans. And for some of us, it is absolutely a lifeline. When I think of LGBTQ two-spirit youth who maybe are growing up in a religious home, social media is a lifeline to them. They may actually be able to reach out and join a support group or just feel supported, just feel normal when their home life feels anything but normal and healthy to them. So I encourage people not to be shy. Do your homework. Before you join a group, because I know a lot of us are real shy about joining groups now since we've left church. Do your research. You want to be sure to find out about the beliefs of whatever group you're looking at, and also you want to find out about their history in case if there is some ugly history there. It's worth finding out about. And also, here's a good thing to know. You're allowed to join a group and you're allowed to leave that same group. You can do it at will. You can do it willy-nilly. It's your life. You do not have to stay stuck in a group. You're trying it out. You're like a butterfly landing on all these different flowers, taking a sip and seeing what tastes good to you. What do you want more of? And you're right.
I think what you just said is more important than we may have initially thought, because you said you can join a group and then leave it. But so often, like many of us come from a background where we either born into or joined a group, but we couldn't leave it. It was very, very difficult to leave it. And so we were kind of trained to like, we have to somehow make this work. So I think that's a really good point. As small as it may seem, you can actually leave a group.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the beauty of rediscovering yourself after you've divorced religion. You're becoming acquainted with your own sense of agency that was denied you for so long. And part of that is trying things out. And sometimes they fit and sometimes they don't. And you don't let it completely derail you and like it's the worst thing ever. It's just a thing. It's a thing that happened. I tried it. I didn't like it. I'm moving on. I'm going to try this other thing. But it's really a matter of giving yourself permission, and then also, as best you can, surrounding yourself with people who are healthy enough that they can handle that and that they can affirm you in your choice. I want you to be healthy. Hopefully you want you to be healthy. Imagine what a better world it would be if all of us were actually, living our healthiest lives as far as our mental health goes.
And groups can change over time as well. They can become healthier or less healthier. And so I've said this a few times in some past RfRxs, but I kind of was raised in a black and white world. And so when I would join a group, I would tend to think that it was always going to be the same. It would never change, but that's just not how things are. And so it's kind of nice to now have that freedom to say, fuck it, and walk away from it, or also have the freedom to fight for it to be better and for it to change too.
Yeah, I have another favorite quote here because I know Dr. Darrell loves my quotes here. Dating after divorce is like high school, but with stretch marks and debt. That's what it's like. So we've already been through, if we're talking about religion, we've kind of been through the ringer there. We've divorced our religion now. We're ready to put ourselves out back into the world, as it were. We're a little older and hopefully a lot wiser. So that's a good one. I got a couple other good quotes for you if you're interested.
Yeah, lay them on us. We love your you come bringing amazing quotes, and
I don't disappoint. That's the truth.
Us.
This is a favorite one of mine. Not in their goals, but in their transitions are people great. That's by Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I love that.
All right.
Oh, here's a good one by Louis Pasteur. My strength lies solely in my tenacity. And that is true. We all need to work on our resiliency because it makes life a lot easier. If you can be resilient, you can be tenacious.
Yeah.
And the last one Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? That's by Mary Oliver. And I love just considering that one. That's inspiring to me. What do I want to do with my one wild and precious life? Obviously, I want to spend it on podcasts with people like you.
Yeah, there is so much freedom in knowing that this is the only life you get, and that you might as well get the best of it. Not having a second chance. It can sound like pessimistic, but it really isn't. It's just like an opportunity to give yourself the freedom to explore new things now, right here, instead of waiting until the next life to be happy.
Yeah, it's time to start making that forbidden fruit into tasty jam. Try it out, explore, see what's there.
That's awesome. Well, we've got a few questions. Do you have anything else you want to say or cover before we move on?
I think that's about it. That's about it for me. Hopefully I can answer your questions.
Good.
I'm sure you will.
This is the most nerve-wracking part, by the way. Here come the questions.
So one of the questions is like, when you're circling a black hole, how does time shift relative to, no, I'm just kidding.
I was checking the question, so I was like, I do not find this here. What is Eric saying?
Oh, phew.
We have before the we had our discussion kind of start. There was a lot of conversation in the chat talking about let's get on board the Janice train, because so many fans of yours are here in the chat.
Oh,
There's quite a few choo-choos going on.
so nice.
So one of the questions is actually from the ACA Discord server. What are some clues to watch for when discriminating between productive and non-productive anger?
Sure. If I'm thinking as far as being aware of potential groups to join or people that I want to associate myself with, I'm going to be trying to gauge the level of intensity that they are, how often they're talking about this thing. Do they keep coming back to this thing? Are they able to see anything else other than this thing, or is it just like this huge massive boulder that's all that they can see? It's obscuring everything else from their field of view. So gauging the intensity, also how often you're kind of circling back around to it. Ideally, anger about a situation is going to motivate us. What's going to motivate us to action. We're either going to leave, or we're going to see what we can do differently to change the situation. We don't want to just be stuck there in like a slow burn, right? We want to use it to be able to change, to move us to action.
Got it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Another person says, let's say one loves themselves to the point they say, fuck the rest of you peasants, because they refuse to accept that they are equally valid and viable as any other human. And this person says, I am single, not lonely, because I complete me. Am I crazy?
No.
So the question is this person crazy, or is this reasonable?
I applaud applaud that person to get to a point where we don't need the validation of other people, because we completely affirm and validate and accept ourselves. I think that's a beautiful space to be in. Now, as far as relationships go, we're looking maybe for people who can add something to our life. We're not looking for people who are going to detract from our life, who are going to be such a drain and a burden that all we have to do is take care of them. Like, that's pretty much parenting. As an adult, you're looking for your equal and just somebody that's going to make your time on this earth more fun. And it's the same with the communities that you're getting involved in. You want it to be enjoyable, because you're actually more productive when you are having fun and when you're enjoying what you're doing. So no, I do not think that person is crazy. I wish I knew that person. I hope I know that person.
Awesome. We've got another question. So for me, I find it difficult to get motivated to do some exercise or to get into some of these healthy habits. The whole feeling of loneliness really kind of feeds upon itself. Do you have any tips to kind of get us past that, to help get us motivated for doing these kinds of things to pull us out of our loneliness and to find the community?
Well, again, I'm a big fan of lists, and one of your lists can be what you want to get out of your life. And the only way that you're going to actually do that is through action. It's not just sitting on your couch wishing that someone would show up at your door. You actually have to make the investment yourself. And that's part of adulting, and that's part of taking responsibility for our life. And we're not in that one-stop shop anymore, where we're kind of catered to in that sense. So when you're uncomfortable enough, you're going to change. I'd like to see you making movement, taking action before then, when it is completely your choice to do it and you're doing it because you want to improve your life.
So on the topic of like healthy habits, if anyone is struggling with sleep, I have been suffering from insomnia for all my life, basically. So if you want any tips, I highly recommend meditation, which I know a lot of times can come with a lot of pseudoscience and kind of magic things, but there is a scientific background for meditation. So I know this is something that I have struggled with during lockdown more. I'm sure a lot of you guys are suffering also with it. So if this is something that you are struggling with a bit these last few months, again, meditation and also medication. If you need to get medication for not only just obviously sleep, but any sort of mental health issue during lockdown, there's no shame in that. Just as a friendly reminder, if you need it, go for it.
Excellent.
Take it.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you. Because yes, particularly medication, if you need it, please pursue it, get on it. It's to improve your life. And thank you for bringing that up. And for meditation, if folks have trouble with dissociation, meditation can present a challenge. So please proceed with caution when it comes to meditation. But there are people who have, I think, made videos on YouTube about trauma-informed types of meditation. So that might be something for you to Google as well. Google is going to be your very best friend, as you said about building your new communities. It's all at your fingertips. You can do it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And then someone says, question for Janice, playing the devil's advocate. So it's a bit of a tricky one. To some, it might sound like your advice just proves the theist's frequent claim as to why people become atheists. You all just want to sin. Do you have any thoughts on that kind of sentence?
Can you repeat that to me again?
Yeah, sorry. So basically someone is saying that what you're saying about now you have the time to kind of explore yourself and explore what it is that you really want to do. So this person is asking, is this validating what a lot of theist people are saying of when you become an atheist, all you just want to do is sin, and that's why you become an atheist? So the question is, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I personally love sinning. I'm a big fan.
Same.
Just put that right out there right now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any problem with
That's great.
with exploration and inspiration and figuring out what you want, particularly apart from what you have been told that you want. Now really is your opportunity to figure out what you like. So go for it. Yeah, I got no problems with that.
You said a word, inspiration?
That's my word that I made up.
You
Thank you for appreciating it. Yeah, just the idea. Sorry.
You made it up. Can you define it? Inspiration.
Inspiration. So with exploration, we're looking at things outside of us. Now is a great time to do some inspiration. Taking a look at our feelings and our thoughts and our values and what we'd like to do, what we don't like, what we need to jettison from our life in order to be healthier. And again, it's only because you want to do it, not because someone else is telling you, you must do this.
Got it. All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't, maybe that'll become a word that we use more and more often, and you heard it here first, folks. Well, we have got one final question, and it kind of goes back to what we had talked about a little bit earlier, how so many people have more friends online than they do offline, and it still seems to be off-putting or not normal in the eyes of some folks. How do you think we could, or what kind of tips do you think we could do to normalize having more online relationships, or having, being okay with having online friends and less offline friends?
Well, we can thank COVID-19 for that, because it really is significantly important in this pandemic time that we're living in. Sometimes we do need to be distancing and isolating from people in real life. I mean, whether we've been exposed to the virus and we're having to self-isolate for 14 days, or I was working in a doctor's office. Now I work from home because I just didn't feel safe with whatever I could be bringing home to my immune compromised daughter. So my amount of interaction with people outside the home has decreased significantly. And with that, I have had a need for my own mental health to increase the number of relationships and communities that I'm forming online. I think it's a great thing for us to be normalizing and encouraging other people to do. I mean, you might catch a computer virus, that's all you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's very safe sex. Practicing very safe sex.
Yeah. So as someone who hasn't lived in her country for 3 years, I can kind of give the advice, unsolicited advice, that make sure that you keep the relationships you had before COVID. During COVID also, Zoom calls, Skype calls, they are quote unquote blessing. They are amazing. It's so important to feel like you still can count on these people. So for example, I haven't been able to see my friends or family since Christmas, and I'm not going to be able to see them until at least Christmas, unless the pandemic gets worse. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure so many of you will probably not have been able to see your family in so many months. So please do make sure that if they're, of course, healthy and good relationships, you keep them. It's not just about making new relationships. It's also about keeping the ones you had before, even if they weren't online based, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Well said. Mm-hmm.
Well, Janice, thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. And looking through the chat, both the ACA Discord and here in Zoom, it's been very active and very encouraging. They've been encouraged by what you've said. So thank you so much for that.
Yay! Thanks for having me back, you guys. It's always fun.
Well, thanks for being had. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for keep coming over, because I would like to remind everyone that our speakers are here for free, so they do it out of their goodness of their hearts, which is why we feel so incredibly grateful for every single one of our speaker, and especially Janice. You have been here so many times, and I can't thank you enough. It's just amazing. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, so kind of how this works. We're going to have a hangout time afterwards. Are you going to be able to stick around for a little bit to be here for some of the folks?
Mm-hmm, you bet.
All right. I just like kind of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, thanks for the black hole question.
We got some answers in the chat and all over. That was great. All right. That's going to wrap up this RfRx discussion. Amaya, why don't you tell us what's coming up?
Definitely. So next week we have our amazing Mandisa Thomas, who of course has been here before, I think a couple of times, if not 3 times now. And she's going to tell us about how to engage with the Black religious community, because right now with Black Lives Matter and all of these different situations that we have going on in the world, there is an environment in which you're probably going to have difficult conversations with religious people, and especially with the Black religious community. So she's going to explain to us how we can engage with these communities better, and how we can connect with religious people in a personal and professional level in a healthy way, because that is also very, very important. So of course, she has been here before, as I said. She's amazing. I highly recommend you join us next week. And I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, just as a reminder, all of our RfRx recordings are in our YouTube channel. And if you want to send us an email or any comments, or just let us know how terrible we are at doing our jobs, you can send us an email to rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. So yeah, Eric, do you want to promote any more things that we do, all of the amazing stuff that we get involved in?
We've got our blog, like I mentioned at the beginning, and we also have our podcast, and we'll get those linked in the chat. All right, folks, we are going to hear in a moment from our Executive Director, Gayle Jordan. But before we do, we're going to, like we close with every other RfRx, we have a feedback poll. Appreciate it if you could answer this for us. But now, everybody's been looking forward to this. That's why you guys are all still here. Gayle Jordan gets to regale us with her fantastic voice and whatever the heck she's going to talk about. Gayle, welcome from your new home in Oregon.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you really good.
Outstanding. Yes, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I've been a little bit sporadic in my attendance in the last few weeks, and I've missed you all. But making the transition across the country, you all are grounding to me. I'm back home. I feel like, even though I'm in my brand new place and I have to learn my town and my region, that I'm back home because I'm part of the RfR community. Janice, thank you for an absolutely wonderful session. I was struck so much tonight as you were talking through, and as we had the chat, and as I watched the questions come in, I realized once again the powerful damage that religion can do. Life is hard enough already. It's tough. We all suffer with depression and anxiety and all the things, but when you're coming away from the religious mentality where everything, I give you a perfect example. When you were religious, it's just a transition and we get to go to Disney World, and isn't that great? And so it blunted the process of death that we should have learned how to deal with as younger people, so that we had that skill set. It's the same is true for relationships, when managing life and all of these things. And I feel like those of us who are coming out of religion, not to play a pity party, but it makes it even more challenging. Instead of just dealing with it and going on and saying, oh my goodness, that person is gone and I'm going to miss them so much and it hurts my heart, because we had that comfort and that feeling of when we were religious of, no, there's this big old party and it's going to be awesome, and it compounds it. And I was so struck by that. Anyway, thank you for a wonderful session, and thank you all for, in your conversation, Eric and Amaya and Janice, about volunteering for RfR and what that has meant to you, and the significance of that. You don't have to be all the way through the other side to volunteer for RfR. It's a process. We're all on a spectrum. We're all on a journey. You may not be ready yet, and that's awesome, and that's fine, and you're getting there, and I understand that. But don't wait till you're fixed, until you're over religion, to reach out and volunteer for RfR. You can help someone else. In fact, it's some of our newest folks who are still getting their feet under them that are our best volunteers. Now, we're careful about that, because we don't want to throw you into a situation where you're not comfortable, and we certainly don't want to let our clients down by not being able to provide them what what they need. So we provide training. We will not throw you into the lion's den, the proverbial biblical lion's den, until you're ready. We give you training wheels. We give you training. We work with you. We give you one-on-one, and we won't let you go until you're ready. But don't wait until you're ready to volunteer for RfR. As usual, you can always help us with retweeting our tweets, reposting our Facebook post, donating if you feel inclined to do that, whether you're a one-time or a $4 a month person who are the backbone of what we do. You know that RfR is made up of so many volunteers, and we depend upon the donations of folks who share our vision. So kind of keep that in mind if you're in a place where you can do that. Anyway, thank you everybody for attending. You are the highlight of my week. I am so grateful. Janice, thank you for what you have done. Eric and Amaya, as usual, thank you for what you have done with bringing this organization together and pulling us together on Monday night so we can have this moment together. And I'm finished. How many minutes was that, Eric?
It was a lot, but that's fine. I don't start a stopwatch with you guys anymore. Forget about it. There's no way to corral you.
Reach out today at recoveringfromreligion.org.